We are continuing the discussion of women's status and description in Sephardic literature, and now we have come to section E, Mysticism. So first section is from Rabbeinu Bahya ibn Ashel, ibn Halewa, who was commentator on the Torah, and who lived between 1255 and 1340. So mid-13th to mid-14th century. He was a Talmid, disciple of Rabbeinu Shlomo ben Adred, the Rashba. Rabbeinu Bahya, in his commentary to Bereshit, chapter 29, speaking of the naming of the children of Rachel and Leah, says the following: "Vatikra shemo Reuven, kirat shemot השבטים לאמותינו לאה ורחל, הכל היה ברוח הקודש על פי מידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא." She named him Reuven. The naming of the tribes by Leah and Rachel was done by prophecy and according to God's attributes. כי לאה בארבעה בניה רמזה כל העשר מלמטה למעלה. ונמצאת למד שהכל נכלל בארבעה בני לאה. He says that Leah, through the names of her four first sons, alluded to all the 10 Sephirot, going from the bottom up, from Malchut all the way up to Keter. ונמצאת למד שהכל נכלל בארבעה בני לאה. So all the Sephirot are included in her four children. Reuven v'Shimon remez l'Shechina m'shesh k'tzavotea. That he explains in details previously, that Reuven v'Shimon allude to the Shechina, to the Malchut, with the 6 ends, the Shesh K'tzavot, which are the middle Sephirot, and Levi v'Yehuda remez l'Gimish al Agabehen, while Levi and Yehuda allude to the 3 upper Sephirot, Keter, Chochma, Bina. The interesting thing is that he sees the work of the imahot, the work of the mothers, in naming their children as connecting directly to a level of prophecy and channeling the energy of the Sefirot through the names. In his commentary to Shemot, chapter 15, verse 20, he refers to the description of Miriam as Miriam HaNevi'ah. Says the following: "ומה ששורה הנבואה על אישה נראה לומר שאין לתמוע שהרי מן האדם היא ואדם נקראת." One should not be perplexed by the fact that women are prophets, meaning that one might have been perplexed by that. It's strange for men, maybe in medieval times, that women would be addressed as prophets, would be described as prophets or prophetesses. And he says, "En litmoa," this should not make you wonder. שהרי מן האדם היא ואדם נקראת. He recognized that a woman is part of mankind, and mankind communicates with God. He goes on to say, Sarah הייתה נביאה כמרים, או גדולה ממנה, and Sarah was a prophet who was equal to Miriam, or even greater than her. שהיה אברהם תפל לשרה בנבואה, אבל הכתוב לא הזכיר נבואה עד מרים. The level of Sarah, her level of prophecy, was greater than that of Abraham, since Hashem told him to listen to her, and maybe even greater than Miriam. Only that the Torah did not use the term prophet in relation to a woman until Miriam. And he goes on to say, והודיענו כי מרים הנביאה מקלסת לשכינה וכל הנשים אחריה, ואומרת השירה הזאת בעצמה כמשה בני ישראל. The Torah came to teach us that Miriam praises the Shekhinah on her own with all the women following her, and she composed this poem on her own, just as Moshe did with the Israelites, meaning that don't think, he wants to tell us not to think that Miriam copied or just repeated the poem of Moshe and Bnei Israel, but rather created her own. And he goes on to say that there are many other great principles in the Torah which were created by or presented by women. For example, the idea of the world to come, which is called Tzror HaHaim, the bundle of life, which was presented by Avigail in the book of Shemuel when she comes to talk to David. The whole idea of prayer is presented by Hannah. He also says the idea of the revival of the dead, although it's not so clearly written in the Bible. The idea of a prayer presented by Hannah is a powerful one, because Hannah, if you recall, bursts into the temple to pray to Hashem to grant her a child. And Ali, who sits by the door, looks at her and thinks that she is drunk, and tells her, "Please sober up and stop desecrating the temple. The rabbis had difficulties with understanding that exchange. How come Ali did not understand that Hannah is praying? And they came up with different explanations, midrashic explanations, saying that he read a message on his breastplate, the Urim v'Tumim, but didn't interpret it correctly, which is a hard idea to digest, because if the people have to follow the rulings of the high priest, but he is prone to make such mistakes, that's a serious issue. So the explanation, I think, is that up until Hannah, people did not pray for themselves. The idea of prayer was to approach a representative, usually a prophet or a leader, and ask him to pray for you. So that is how Yitzhak prays for Rivka. Rachel approaches Yaakov, asking him to pray for her. When Avimelech takes Abraham's wife, Hashem tells him, "Hashev eshet ha'ish ki naviu v'yitpalel ba'atcha v'hyeh." Bring him back, give him back his wife, and he will pray for you. The idea of praying for oneself is not mentioned. Moshe prays for Bnei Israel, and Hannah is the first one to come and pray for herself, and that's why Ali did not understand what was going on. She should have approached him and asked for him to pray for her, but instead she went directly to the Hechal, to the Ark, and prayed on her own, and that was her innovation. That was the new idea that she introduced, which is indeed written directly in the Tanakh. And it brings out our example, the wise woman of Tekoa, who spoke to Yoav, וכל זה יורה שאין האישה דבר תפל לגמרי, אבל יש לה עיקר. So all that shows us that the woman is not a secondary person, but rather she is essential. Or he almost says that she is equal to men. He also quotes the statement of the rabbis in Masechet Megillah, that there were 7 women who were prophets, and they are Sarah, Miriam, Hannah, Devorah, Huldah, Abigail, Esther, regarding whom Sarah, we know that Hashem tells Abraham to listen to her. Miriam is a prophet; she is called a prophet in the Navi. Hannah is not referred to as a prophet in the Tanakh. Devorah is a judge. She says her poem Shirat Devorah apparently through prophecy. Huldah is named Huldah Nevi'ah in the book of Yirmiyahu. Abigail is the one who spoke to David, trying to prevent him from attacking her husband. That we don't know that she acted with prophecy. And Esther. And he concludes, and those 7 women who are prophets correspond to the 7 lower midot, which are considered the 7 lower sefirot, which are considered the ones who are receiving. That is from Gevurah, Tiferet down, and that is in accordance with the general understanding of the of women as being passive and receptive instead of being active and giving. In another statement by Rabbeinu Bachya, this in Bereshit chapter 2 verse 18, the famous statement of Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado, it is not good for man to be alone. He quotes his master Rabbi Shlomo ben Adret, and he says the following: Tzurat hazachar v'hanekeva k'inyan hashemesh v'hayarech. Men and women, male and female, correspond to the sun and the moon. God, but in His wisdom, mandated that it is not good for men to be alone. It is for the benefit of men to have someone who will receive from him. Along the same lines that we saw in Shemot, when speaking about the prophets, here he says that man is the essence of creation, but if he is alone, he has no one to interact with, and therefore he needs the woman to bestow his abundance or blessing upon her. This is similar to the way the philosophers and later on the Kabbalists understand the rule of God, the role of God in creation, and almost trying to explain why the world has been created by saying that God is good and God wants to bestow His abundance upon us, and therefore He created human beings to give them, to share with them His abundance. So God is the giver and we are the receivers. So that hierarchy, that model of God giving men, has been copied by the rabbis, by the mystics, and here by Haim Ovadia and the Rashba, to the relation between a man and a woman. So the man in this analogy is equal to God, and the woman is equal to mankind. Definitely hierarchy where the woman is much weaker than the men, and that is also analogous. It is analogous to the sun and the moon. The moon is only a vessel, and the sun is the active one. The moon is only receiving light from the men. And that is he says, the reason for the statement of Rabbi Avu in the Talmud. בתחילה עלה במחשבה לברות שניים, זה לעצמו וזה לעצמו, ולבסוף במעשינו נברא על האחד, This statement of Rabbi Avu is in Masechet Berachot 61:1, Daf Samech Aleph Amud Aleph. The full discussion of the Gemara is this. It starts with the question, the contradiction between the first story of Bereshit, where it says that men and women were created together, and the second, where it says that she was created from the rib. So on that, the Talmud says, "Vayiven Hashem Elohim et hatzela," and God built the rib into a woman. Rav Shmuel, Had Amar Partzuf, v'Had Amar Zanav. There is a dispute between Rav and Shmuel. One of them says that this additional creation, the woman was a Partzuf, was a face, meaning a separate being, and or a being that was connected to Adam back to back, and then God separated her. V'Had Amar Zanav. One says that the tzela means a tail. So God separated a tail from the man and made that tail into a woman. So then the Talmud goes on to say, if you say that the first man, the first human being, was dichotomous with two faces, man and woman, sort of like the Roman god Janus, who had two faces and it was split in the middle, that explains the first chapter that says Zacharun Keva Bera'am. So I could reconcile the two different renditions of the story. God created them originally as one being, which is connected in the back, and has two faces, two entities, male and female. But if you say that the first man was a man with a tail, then where is the male and the female? So the Talmud answers, Kedi Rabbi Avu. That is according to the explanation of Rabbi Avu that says, "Batchila ala b'machshava livrot shnayim, ulvasof lo nivra ela echad." Rabbi Avu says that the first chapter that speaks of the creation of two beings, men and women, speaks about the thought of God. God wanted to create them, but eventually He created only one. So, according to Rabbi Avu, the creation of women never occurred. The first chapter that says that men and women were created simultaneously, that never happened. There was only a planning, that was only planned by God, but was never carried out. And in the second chapter is when that plan is carried out, and only one person is created, and that is men. Man is created with a tail, and then that tail is separated and turned into a woman. So to that statement in the Talmud, Rabbeinu Bachya is referring here, and he says, "Vezeu mamar Rabbi Avu, batchila ala machshava livrot shnayim, ze le'atzmo," etc. Says, "Ve'af al pi she'hanekeva nilkecha mimenu ve'ayu shnayim." If you would argue that God did create two because the woman was created from the men, and הנקבה נחשבת בבריאה, the female is not part of the process of creation, שאינה אלא כדבר נטפל אל העיקר, לקוח ממנו לצורך תשמישו. She is only a secondary thing, sort of an attachment, an accessory that clings to the essential part, and it is only removed in order to serve the essential part. And that's why they called her a tail. So, according to this interpretation of Rabbeinu Bachaya of the Talmudic statement, which is in itself midrashic, the woman was referred to as a tail because she is secondary and unimportant. So, on one hand, in the same commentary of Rabbeinu Bachaya, we find high praise of women. The Rachel and Leah name their children in a way that corresponds to the Sephirot. They are prophets. They introduced major concepts of the Torah, but in the very same commentary, refers to women in very degrading terms. She's only receiving from the men. She is like the moon compared to the sun. She is a tail. She's secondary. She's not part of the creation. From here we go to some statement in the Zohar, which was made available by Rabbi Moshe de Leon in the 13th century, more or less around the time of Rabbeinu Bachaya. He lived from between 1240 to 1305. And we read this in the first volume of the Zohar, chapter on Parashat Bereshit, page 49:1. Says this: Mikan va'elach ba'ala yetei legaba deha beita dilahu. Once they get married, the husband must come to his wife because the house belongs to her. Iu yetei legaba v'chol beita dilahu ve'itol reshut mina. He must come to her since the whole house belongs to her, and he should take her permission. Mikan olifna demand mithabar beintite. From here we learn that one who is going to unite with his wife, meaning sexual relationships, he must please her and talk to her. And if he does not do that, he's not allowed to sleep with her. That is in order to have their will together. They have to have mutual understanding and consent, and there should be no forcing on her on one side. He cannot force her. That is a deviation from the way the relationships were seen in medieval times, and it gives a lot of credit to the woman. She is in control. And then this is based on the story of Yaakov, who slept in Vayifga b'makom vayalin sham. It's interesting to note that he takes the word Vayifga b'makom, he came to the place and he slept there, as an analogy to sexual relationship between a man and a woman. Just like Yaakov pogea b'makom, lifgoa in Hebrew means to get to a place or to plead. So he says, when the man wants to come to the makom, to the place which is his wife, he must plead with her and ask her for permission to be with her. So, but in that analogy, the man is Yaakov and the woman is the Shekhinah, the divine providence. A pretty powerful analogy to place the woman in that status. He took from the stones the local rocks and he put around his head. Here we were taught, even if the king has a precious golden bed and fine robes and sheets to sleep on, and meanwhile his wife, the queen, and here it's every man is the king, every woman is the queen, and she sets for him a bed with stones. Yishbok dile, he must abandon his own bed. He has to go and sleep in the bed that she set for him. As it says here, Yaakov slept in that place. And come see what is it, what is written here. And here, the Zohar refers to the famous pasuk, Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado, and that the famous story of the creation of the woman from the rib. She's brought to Adam, and Adam says, Zot ha'pa'am eitzem me'atzamai u'basar mibasari. He says, this time, this one is a bone from my bone and flesh from my flesh. The Zohar interprets it as a sort of verbal foreplay, habesimu de milin. This is the fragrance of word or fragrant words. le'amshacha ima havivuta, ule'amshacha lelira'ute lit'ara ima rehimuta. It is to draw upon her his liking, so she will like him and she will want him. Le'it'ara ima rehimuta, to unite with her, or to awaken, to be aroused with her with love. So this paragraph has sexual connotations, very or innuendo. Look how beautiful are these words. How many words of love? Inun. Bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And all that was said by Adam, he wanted to show her that they are one and that there is no separation between them. And then and then he started to praise her. He said that's an exaggeration of the Zohar to say that Adam praised his wife, saying she is the one who was called the woman. She is the one who no one like her can be found. She is the glory of the house. She is so beautiful that all women compared to her are like monkeys. Some kind of exaggeration here in the Zohar, but all in all, great praise to women. They are in control. The man must please and talk to his wife before he engage in a sexual relationship with her. Another interesting phrase from the Zohar is in volume 1, page 49, where it speaks about the palaces in the world to come that are dedicated to the women. Have in mind that as we look at this description of the palaces and the world to come, this is in the mind of the author, this is the ideal world. This world is imperfect, and in the perfect world, women have a different status. So what he describes in the Zohar as something that will happen in the world to come is also what, according to his understanding, should have happened in this world had it not been corrupt by sin, by the fall, by the breaking of the vessels, etc. So we read this. I will translate directly to English. In the first temple, this is in page 167, 2. In the first palace, there lives Batya bat Paro, the daughter of Pharaoh, and with her thousands and myriads of women who all have a merit with her, and each one of them has her own place of light and pleasure with enough room for all. To say, as if to say that in this world they are being pushed aside by the men, but in the world to come they have their own place. And 3 times a day the announcers announce that the icon of Moshe, the faithful prophet, is coming, and Batya goes out to a place separated by curtains, and she sees the icon of Moshe, and she bows down, and she says, I have that great merit of nurturing and taking care of that light, and this is her own pleasure greater than all. This is still within the context of the Talmudic statement that the merit of women is through taking care of their children. But with Batya and Moshe, there is an added element because Batya saved him, and without her, he would not have been able to become the Redeemer. So that is a special merit. And then she goes back to the women, and they together study Torah. All of them look the same as they looked in this world and are dressed with robes of light. And those robes of light are equal to the robes of the men, only that they have a different glow. They don't shine the way the robes of the men shine. So they have almost equal status, and they study Torah together. But that's not only a study of Torah. The words of Torah that they did not have the merit to follow or to fulfill in this world, they learn those words and their reasoning in the world to come. And that has to be understood in the according to the statement of the rabbis, that we cannot fulfill the sacrifices. We cannot observe the laws of the sacrifices today, but we do it through our prayer or our learning the laws of this korban, of the sacrifices. They based on the pasuk unishalema parim sifatenu. We will pay for the oxen with our lips, and that is actually presented in the Sephardic Sidurim in the morning prayer before reading the Mishnah Zeu Mekomah Shel Zvachim that speaks about all the rules of the sacrifices, because the rabbis argued that just by reading the laws of sacrifices, it is considered that one brought the sacrifices themselves. So for the Zohar to say that the women study the laws that they did not have the merit to observe in this world, it means that actually observing them in the world to come, although it's a world where one cannot observe laws, it's not a world of physical action. So here again we see his, we could call it wishful thinking, or his ideal situation where he thinks that women should be able to learn Torah and fulfill Torah in this world. The next palace is where Sarah Bat Asher lives, with her also myriads and thousands of people, of women. In her palace, it is announced that the icon of Yosef is coming, and she goes there, she sees his light, and she says, how meritorious was the day in which I brought the news that you're alive to my grandfather. We spoke about her before, about Sarah as being the carrier of tradition and the one who transmits the knowledge to the following generation. Then she returns to the rest of the women, and together they praise God and thank Him, and each one of them has wonderful joy in when they're engaged in this activity, and then they go back to study the laws of the Torah. In the next palace lives Yocheved, the mother of Moshe, with myriads and thousands. And now there's an upgrade. In that palace, there's no announcements, meaning in the other palaces, or that of Batya Bat Paro and Tzerah Bat Asher, the announcer had to let people know that the icon of Moshe or the icon of Yosef is approaching. But in the palace of Yocheved, she herself takes the initiative. This is the upgrade that of a woman who is on herself, does what has to be done, and she goes out and thanks and praises God with all the women who are with her, and they sing together the song of the sea. And Miriam alone says, this is Yocheved and Miriam, when they get to the pasuk Vatikach Miriam Nevi'ah et hatov beyada, when they get to the verse that Miriam took the tambourine and started singing, it is only Yocheved or only Miriam who recites that, and all the righteous men in paradise, in Gan Eden, listen to her song, and all the angels praise and sing with her. And that again is an interesting statement of what the author sees as the ideal situation of men and women singing together, or men listening to the voice of women singing, in a clear deviation from the idea of Kol Beisha Arva, that a woman should not sing in front of men, which is another discussion. Be'echala Hara, in another temple, you find the Vorah, and then finally, deep inside, there are 4 hidden, concealed palaces of the holy mothers that were not given to any, that are off limits to anyone, and no one can see them. All day they are by themselves, and their men also are by themselves, but each night they all come together as one, because this is the time of the zivug, this is the time of uniting, which is midnight, whether it is this world or the world to come. Only that in the unification of the world to come, it is the clinging of one soul to another soul, one light to another light, whereas the zivug, the unification of this world, is one body to another body. And those 4 palaces are called Echalin de Banot Botchot. All these, the titles that he mentioned before, so Banot Sha'ananot, Nashim Botchot, are actually taken from a prophecy that is critical of the Israelites, but he switches those words, he converts them into words of praise, and those are the palaces of the women. Also in Shemot, page 94, too, he describes the relationship between the one who studies Torah and the Torah to that of a woman who conceals herself from the rest of the world and only shows herself to her beloved. He says this. Again, I'm reading and translating directly to English. The Torah calls out with love, calls out to men, but they do not turn their head. And I have already told you that the Torah does reveal herself. How does it reveal herself? By showing one word, literally pulling that word out of a sheath like a sword, showing some of it and then hiding again. This is true. At the time that she reveals herself and conceals herself again, she does it in order to draw the attention of those who know her and are concerned with her. And with the word yada'in ba v'ishtemoda'an ba, those are two ways to say the word yada', to know. One is reflexive, one is active. But the word ishtemoda, with that sounds like the building shichtev, in Hebrew shif'el, is an invention of the book of Zohar. It doesn't exist in the Aramaic, the parallel Aramaic, which was supposed to have been spoken at that time. But maybe the author refers her to the yada in the biblical sense, because he's talking about an interaction that, although it is from afar, resembles sexual interaction. And it says, what is this analogous to? To a beloved woman who is beautiful inside and in complexion, and she is hidden within her palace, and she has one lover who is not known to people. People don't know that there is a relationship between them, and he is also concealed. So both are concealed, both are in hiding, and he circles her house and waiting for her to emerge and to show herself. According to some commentators, according to scholars also, such as Daniel Abrams, this analogy is very intimate and erotic, and refers to the sexual arousal. I don't know if it is necessary, but as it is, it's already a powerful mashal. This lover goes around the temple and constantly is on the watch to see if she reveals herself. And since she knows that he's there, she opens the door, or she opens a tiny window and shows her face to her beloved and immediately conceals herself. All other people who are there do not see and do not observe except for her beloved. And at that moment, his heart and soul go out to her, is excited and very emotional, and he knows that because of her great love, she reveals herself to him to pour her love on him. We continue in the Zohar, now going back to Parashat Bereshit, page 50, Sefer Bereshit, Parashat Bereshit, page 50, side 2, going to page 51, side 1, and that reminds us of the commentary we read in Rabbeinu B'Chayei, where Yaakov and the Makom, which is understood as the Shekhinah, are analogized to men and women. So the woman is the Shekhinah. There is a concept of the double marriage between the man and his wife and the man in the Shekhinah. So the tzaddik, the righteous man, is in a way in between two women. One is the physical woman, his wife in this world, and one is the Shekhinah, the divine woman or the divine feminine in the upper worlds, in the world of the Sephirot. He says this, come and see, one who must travel should first pray to God and ask Him to bring upon himself the divine providence before he leaves, before he goes, embarks on his journey. In order for him to be male and female, he should not be alone. Once he has presented his prayers and praises to God, and he knows that the divine providence dwells on him, he could leave, because he knows that the Shekhinah is going to unite with him. And the word here is devagat. The zivug is sexual interaction. So there's a spiritual sexual interaction between the tzaddik and the Shekhinah in order for him to be a male and female. Just as he is a male and female with his wife at home, he has to be male and female when he travels. And because he is engaged in this kind of spiritual interaction, spiritual sexual relationship, he must, as long as he's on the way, to keep himself in order to not cause that divine union to abandon him, and then he will be pagum, he will be flawed without zachar nekeva. And most probably, the Zohar says in the Natra Ovadoi to watch himself, the main concern is with wasting one's seed, which is sort of a sexual act that is done in solitary. So that is the way to protect the tzaddik while he's traveling from such thoughts, because he's engaged with the Shekhinah. And he says, just as he needs to watch his actions when he's home, when his wife is with him, even more so when he's traveling. And the zivuga ila'ah, the upper zivug, the spiritual unification, unity, is with him. Not only that zivug ila'ah, that divine connection, watches him while he travels and will stay with him until he returns home. And when he returns home, he must cause joy to his wife, and that is a translation of the Talmudic phrase that means that one should have interaction, should have sexual intercourse with his wife to make her happy, because she, his wife, brought upon him the zivug ila'ah. So that is a very complex and intimate system, according to the Zohar, where the tzaddik, the righteous man, moves between his physical wife and his divine wife, so to speak. Of course, there's a great danger here of anthropomorphism, but that was from the very beginning the problem with the Zohar and with some other mystical writings. From the readings of the Zohar, we're going to go now to later to other Mekubalim, more or less at the same time of the release of the Zohar. That's Rabbi Menachem Rekanati in the 12th. I just will add one more thing. When we speak about the Zohar, it is contested. The question of the authorship of the Zohar is highly contested. People believe that it was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The language doesn't support that. There are many other problems already pointed out by Rabbi Yaakov of Emedin in his book Mitpachat Sefarim, also explained by Shayahu Tishbi in his introduction to Mishnat HaZohar. When speaking about the role of women in the Zohar, there is first a duality. There are those statements that we mentioned now that seem to praise women, the women in the world to come, the woman as the zivug of the men, and as a parallel of the Shekhinah. The men is in between the divine woman and the earthly woman. Also, the women who have these levels of prophecies and the idea that women should be equal to men and study Torah like them, and that will only happen in the world to come, but ideally should have happened here. So that is one aspect of how women are seen in the book of Zohar. On the other hand, we have because of the emphasis of the Zohar on purity of thought, purity of the body, we have also the sort of the negative view of women as the temptress, the representative of the evil inclination, etc. And this is something that we're going to see also in the works of the Rekanati. But when we think of the positive statements in the Zohar, it brings to mind the fact that Rabbi Moshe de Leon's wife, Rabbi Moshe de Leon was the one who distributed the Zohar. She's always mentioned in the stories about the questions of the authorship of the Zohar, because after Rabbi Moshe de Leon passed away, the rabbis went to investigate who, if he's the author or if he had an original manuscript, and they asked her. They came to her house. They spoke with her. She's one of the prominent women who are mentioned in context of mystical teaching. So one might ask if, according to that opinion that Rabbi Moshe de Leon is the author of the Zohar, his wife was influential either in his writings or in his understanding of women's status, or etc. So that's an issue to ponder. It's hard to prove. We go to the Rekanati. Rabbi Menachem Rekanati, 13th century, lived in Italy, was under Ashkenazi influence, but also Sephardic. And he also speaks about the same verse, "Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado," it is not good for man to be alone. And he says this: we've already explained that men, the word Adam, refers to Tiferet, the midah of Tiferet, which is on what is called Kava Emtzai in the drawing of the Sefirot. Tiferet is the sixth Sephirah, and it is found between Chesed and Gevurah, between that of mercy and that of rigor. So Tiferet is in the middle, it's sort of a balance. And the Eizer Kenegdo Shechina, and the Eizer, the helpmate which parallels men, or Tiferet, is the Shechina, which is Malchut, the lower Sephirah, which is also in the center between the eighth and the ninth Sefirot. So there is this correlation between them. And he quotes the Zohar that says that the Nukva, the female, spreads out or grows and clings to the male until she eventually abandons her place and comes to unite to the man face to face. And when they are together, they appear to be one body. And from here we have learned that when a man is on his own, he is only half a body, and when a woman and a man come together, they are all one body, literally. So he combines here two things. One is the statement of the Talmud that a man without a woman is called half a human being, where over there what the Talmud meant was that man is incomplete, not that he's not called, that he's physically half a body. But he also takes the statement in Bereshit that says, "Al ken ya'azov ish et aviv et imo v'davak be'ishto v'ayu levasar echad." Therefore, because of the way men and women were created, man abandons his wife and clings. Man abandons his parents and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh. So, unlike other commentators who understood that becoming one flesh as the act of creating a child, which is a combination of the physical traits and the investment of both the father and the mother, Rabbi Menachem Rekanati says that they are physically one person. And he says here also, when speaking of the Sefirot, remember this is an analogy to the world of Sefirot, that the Sefirah of Malchut rises up and connects to the Sefirah of Tiferet, and they all become one body, and all the worlds are at that moment in great joy, because now the world is complete, now the body is complete, the Matronita, the Bakat, the Malkat, the queen is clinging to the king, and they are one body. And on that day, on the day of this holy union between the Sefirot, blessings flow to the world, and therefore we can conclude that the one who is not male and female is half a body, and that the blessing does not dwell on a flawed or missing word or concept. Rather, it has to be a complete thing. Finally, he concludes, he says, you see that Hava, the woman, was created with the 10th utterance, because she is the 10th of the structure of the Sefirot. So the Kanati pushes the envelope to make it work, because he speaks about the 10 utterances, and says that Hava was created with the 10 utterance, and that represents her place in the structure of Sefirot, because Sefirat Malchut is the lowest one, and therefore the 10th Sefirah. it is, as I said, he's pushing the envelope because this is not. It doesn't work with the text of the Torah, because the idea of the 10 utterances, as mentioned in Pirkei Avot, only refers to the first chapter, where God is created as one who creates with an utterance. Vayomer Elokim yehi or, and God said, "Let there be," and God said, "Let there be," etc. But in the second chapter, the creation is not through utterances, but rather through actions. God plants a garden. He waters the garden. He makes Adam fall asleep, and then he cut out the rib and builds something in front. So it is not done through an utterance. From here we'll our last entry. There is a lot written in Kabbalah about women. The analogy is all over in the writings of the Ari, Azamer Bishvahin, the song that is sung Erev Shabbat. Also, there are strong allusions not only to the connection between men and women, but to the physical act. And here we'll conclude with a statement by Rabbi Haim David Azulai, the Hida, who lived in the 18th century. He had a combined tradition because he had a paternal grandfather from Morocco and a maternal grandfather from Germany, and he also traveled excessively in North Africa and Western Europe. A very learned man, prolific writer, great scholar, very steeped in the mystical, but also wrote a lot of works of halakha. And here he says the following: that is on the attempt of the servant of Avraham to find a match for Yitzhak. And there he says, the test that Abraham's servant creates for the future wife is one of mercy. He says, I will ask the woman to give me water. And if she does so, I will know that she is fitting for Yitzhak. Why is that test important, according to the Hida? It says, because it is known that Yitzhak represents rigor. And a woman, in general, is harsh judgment. And that he bases on the statement of the rabbis, Dina de Malchuta Dina, originally meant that one must obey the rules of the local government, but he understands that the Hida is the judgment of the Malchut, literally Malchut as the 10th Sephirah, which is feminine, and it is related to Din, which is a harsh judgment. And he says, therefore, if Yitzhak's wife, future wife, will be harsh judgment, they will not be able to live together, because when harsh judgment is combined with rigor, that the world would not be able to sustain that kind of punishing justice, and that will also cause damage to Avraham, who is merciful, and Hida, who loved playing with the numerical values and with words in general, says that the numerical value of Avraham is 248, which is equal to Rahim, to be merciful, and they will not be able to live together. He says, but if the wife of Yitzhak will be a combination of the mercy that is in judgment, it will be great, because the harsh judgment will be sweetened by the mercy within judgment. The harsh judgment will be sweetened and adulterated or mixed. Here is a reference to the idea of yain mazug, of mixing wine with water, that originally was mentioned in the Talmud as a way to make the wine, to dilute the wine, because their wine was very, very strong, and people would not be able to drink it without water. So there was an art of mixing, diluting wine, not adulterating, I said before, that diluting wine. And later on, in medieval times, because the wine was produced in a different way, and there was no need to mix water to it, that halakha was abandoned. But the Zohar reinstituted this practice by saying that even though one does not want to add water to the wine, because it is not so strong, he still has to add 3 droplets of water to represent the act of making the wine, which is a harsh judgment, sweet by adding water, which is mercy. So this is what he refers to here. And he says, and this is amazing. This is an irregular thing, because a woman is usually harsh, and it says Veseder Nashim Ruban Kechulan Dina Kashya, and most of the interaction with women include harsh judgment. He also says the word Seder Nashim, maybe he refers to here literally to the Mishnayot, it could be a wordplay, but that too, if one looks at the Mishnayot of the order of Nashim in the Mishnah, most of them deal with problems. There are only a small section of Kiddushim which is positive, but the rest is Gitin, Ketubot, Yevamot, the Levirate law, the laws of divorces, the laws of Ketubah, which are monetary contracts, the laws of Nazir and Sultan. So he says even the Mishnayot that deal with the laws of women are mostly negative, and that is the reason for the statement of the rabbis that women are not welcoming towards guests. And why is that? To welcome a guest into your house, you have to be forgiving, you have to be flexible. And since the woman is a harsh judgment, she has no tolerance, and she is not willing to forgive and to be flexible towards the guest. That in itself, the statement of the rabbis that women do not welcome guests is a problem, but we're not going to discuss it now. I just wanted to present some sources from our mystical traditions that deal with the status of women. And with that, we conclude our discussion of women in mysticism, and the field is wide and open, and those who are interested should really engage in learning about these interactions between the ideas of the status of women and mysticism. So we'll conclude here.